Hey everybody, welcome back to the Saltworks podcast. We are so excited you're here. I'm your host, Hallie Dye, and normally we have your co-host now, Lindsay Stagg. She is on today's episode. She is not on as co-host today. Lindsay is a guest on the podcast, which she's been many times, but today is different because today we are sharing Lindsay's story, her testimony with you. It is something we've talked about for years, and here we are. I'm ready and we're sharing it, and I'm so excited because it's such a powerful testimony, yes, of her story, but of God's goodness and just his faithfulness as a provider. And we talk about things today like when we want to hold on to comfort and control and praying hard things and really living surrendered. And we talk about things like moving and infertility and finding community. There are so many great things. I can't wait for you to hear it. So here's my conversation with Lindsay. Yeah, this probably is the most emotionally charged episode we've maybe ever recorded.
For sure.
For us.
Yes.
Every episode is super emotional, but
Yes.
I do think this one is
It's
very personal, very fresh.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it isn't, but also it is. It is to share it.
Yeah.
I would say that. Yeah.
For sure.
How are you feeling about today?
I'm okay, actually. Like I probably since last week and the first time I prayed, like for timing on things, like I feel like the Lord's been very kind and like just affirming that like, no, this is right. And whether you feel ready to like share some of those hard parts or not, like it's right. I mean, even just we might have talked about this, but like so I started that Jesus and Women study or whatever.
Yeah.
And like one of the things she talks about is like you've learned a thing when you can share it. And like she talked a lot about like being a river, not a lake, where like the word of God comes to us, through us, and to others. And like this morning I sat down and I'm like at a point in that study where I would have like the first thing would be watching the video, which is like an hour long. I was like, I don't have time to watch the video today. And so I picked up, which is important, I think, and significant and wasn't an accident, but like I haven't touched this little devotional in probably a year almost, but it was one that like about my utmost for his highest. And like he had said something
from McKay's.
I love it. I was like, let me read this today. And I like turned to today's. And like one of the parts of today was talking about in John, and I went ahead and marked it because I was like, we'll probably end up talking about this at some point. But in John 7, where he says, whoever believes in me, as the scripture has said, out of his heart will flow rivers of living water. And so like it's just a theme, like it's been a theme for the past week. And I'm just like, okay, God, like, and it basically today's like point was when we've received blessings, like it will corrupt us if we hold on to it. And like it's meant for like when the Lord blesses us, it is meant to be shared, like to be poured out as like an offering to God to communicate to others.
Also think like that just helps cast off shame. Like it's not this for it to just be held. Like, not that every detail has to be shared, and like we're not going to share every detail, and I'm sure that'll come back up in the episode. But to turn loose of those things that you feel like discount you or are shameful or hard or whatever, but to actually give those to the Lord and like however you want to use these.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like as far as details are concerned, like I left like little comments and stuff along the way with certain parts of all the things in the story of like what we may or may not get to and talk about. But ultimately, like I've just prayed, Lord, like obviously like all the ins and outs don't need, that's not necessary, but like some things probably do need to be shared. And like just in the moment, like, would you just give me wisdom to know like what should be said and what shouldn't be said? And so I'm not like concerned, like I said, and I don't really know, you know, like I don't know how much of it really to communicate. I think the things the Lord's taught me through all of that, like I don't know how much is necessary, you know. And so I don't know. I mean,
Also,
it feels a little nerve-wracking, but like I'm also
our
okay.
video tech
Yes.
editor
Yes.
is
For sure.
Collin.
And
So
so
if
anything.
you're hearing this right now, just know it's passed through his blessing.
Yeah.
We actually have a picture of him setting up everything today
Yes.
that we will post when this airs, just because it's sweet to see, like,
Yeah.
you know, him send you out and be glad that the Lord is using the story. So or turn you loose, however you want to, however you want to phrase that, however you want to look at it. Okay, so you have been on the podcast more than anyone else, and really about to be more on the podcast more than anyone else, because you're now the permanent co-host, as long as you're well and able to come, but this is different because we've actually never had you on the show as a guest to share your story.
Right.
And so I do want to set that up for people who've listened before. This is actually your testimony we're going through today. And we haven't done that with you. We've heard like bits and pieces.
I was going to say,
and topics.
Like, most of our topics, like there's an element of like things I've learned through my testimony, but never like explicitly talked about those things.
Yeah. Having said that, for the people who stumble across this episode because they needed this episode or someone sent it to them or whatever, they don't know who you are. And so, you know, we start every episode like this, but
I do.
Someone else might not. So who is Lindsay Stagg?
That's funny. I like probably on the way here that thought this morning, like, oh yeah, I wonder if we're going to do that today. Because like I've probably done it somewhere along the way. But I was like, oh gosh, how would I answer that today? And I'd be curious to even like go back and listen to the first time I might have said that. Because I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how I said it then. But I think that's like one of my favorite things is to hear how like all the people who come on like answer that question.
Yeah.
Because it's a very like simple question, but also like when someone asks you like, who are you? How would you describe yourself? You're like, oh gosh, I don't know actually. And I think most of the time we do default to like, well, I'm, and I think those are the roles that we play. But a big part of my story, honestly, has been like growing in my understanding of like what my identity, like where my identity actually is founded. And that's in the Lord and who he says I am. And so that is like the basis for everything. But my roles, I'm a mom. I'm a wife to Collin, mom to two. I have, well, technically three, one on the way.
Yes.
Still kind of weird to say that. But I have Lillian, who has just turned 5, and then John Michael, who's 2. He'll be 3 in January. And I'm now co-host on a podcast that Lord knows would have like never happened in a million years. But here we are. Really should have included that as part of the testimony too, because I'm like, that was a cool story in and of itself to even be doing this, and very much not
You've
in
been
my
COO
zone.
of Saltworks for a while.
I have,
but then this year,
I'd
tack on co-host.
Yes.
So,
I taught for 11 years. I mean, I would say former teacher, but like, I mean, if you're a teacher, like, I don't know if that really ever. Like you're always a teacher. Like if I see my students, I'm always going to be Miss Stagg. So like, and I mean, that's probably
semi-professional gardener.
I don't know about that. Yeah. I just ripped up my entire garden.
Oh. Was this in preparation for today, or is that just totally unrelated?
No, totally unrelated. Although pulling weeds is a great stress reliever.
I'm recalling a story we have to pause and say.
Okay.
During the part of the story that we will get to later.
Yes.
Can I just tell a spoiler?
Oh, please, go for it.
You and Collin were separated.
Yes.
And with not really plans to reconcile.
Right.
And Collin was our sound guy.
Yes.
And you were the CEO of Saltworks. Don't recommend both of your coworkers being in an active divorce. Yeah. But alas, that is where we were. That's where we were. And so, anyways, and so our guest came on, and
bless her.
super sweet, powerful story. But that was the first time we'd met her in
Yes.
person.
Yes.
And so we're showing her on the podcast and like kind of introducing ourselves as well, which is a little different than some other times.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm saying, well, this is Lindsay, whatever. So then Collin shows up to set things up. And I'm like, oh, this is Collin. He does our sound and he does our video editing and all the things. And so she's like, oh, it's nice to meet you. And we're all talking and whatever. And if we don't have humor,
oh, what do we have?
What do we have?
We have to laugh.
Okay, we
Gotta
do
laugh
have
at things.
respect for sacred things. I
We
want to
do.
say that
We
for
do.
us, but also we do laugh. But so she says something about gardening, and you say, you said something, and Collin goes, "Oh, that's her therapy," or something,
Yeah.
something along
Yeah.
those lines. And she kind of looks between the two of y'all and says, "Oh, are y'all married?" And the way everyone just kind of,
We all just looked around at each other.
everybody just kind of looked at each other, and I really don't know what we were just like,
I'm not sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was like the most.
Because I guess technically we were.
I just remember her face being like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it was
Anyways,
just,
moving on.
yeah. I'm like, can you imagine how nervous you are when you come in to record your story? Like, it's so nerve wracking. And like to be on a podcast and all of those things that you're not used to, and then having that sort of interaction.
Yeah.
And then be like, all right.
She may still be thinking about that to this day. So hopefully this will settle some things.
For sure, we'll settle some things.
Yes.
Anyways,
But yeah,
that was
no,
a lot of low points, but that was
it was. But
that was one we like to recall. Okay.
oh yeah, because it was a good time.
So, yes. Okay. Tell us about growing up, Lindsay, because you are from here.
Yeah. So I mean, I would say,
And here is Monroe, for anyone
Yes,
listening.
Monroe,
Monroe,
yeah.
Louisiana.
grew up here in Monroe. I mean, very normal childhood, like two wonderful parents who always like value church and like instilled that in us. Like we were at church all the time, even against our will. Most of the time I can remember so vividly like hating to go on Wednesday nights to choir.
Me
I
too,
hated it.
choir and GAs.
This is like totally random and I don't even know why this is coming to me right now, but like I distinctly remember one Wednesday afternoon, like we had been outside playing and I was riding my scooter and I had flipped over, and I still have the scar from it, but I flipped over my handlebars. Who knows? I don't know what happened, but like, flipped over the handlebar, something like scraped my arm pretty terribly on the like whatever. And I was like, please don't make me go to choir. My arm hurts. And like, I'm pretty sure I still went to choir.
Absolutely.
I remember thinking to myself, oh, I don't have to go because I just hurt myself. Like, I'm going to be fine. Nope. Went to choir.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say like, just an important like thing to have instilled in us as a family, early on, was just the importance of like being involved in church. I have two brothers. I'm in the middle, so I have an older brother and a younger brother.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, gave my life to Christ. And I say 9-ish, like this is terrible. And I think back and I'm like, gosh, how old was I actually? Like, I think I was 8 or 9, somewhere in that range. And like some of the details of like when I gave my life to Christ are kind of fuzzy. And I'm like, I remember it being like maybe either at a VBS or like just following a VBS. But like I do remember like a shift in how I felt overall.
Yeah.
Just like there was a marked difference, and like I knew that like the Lord was calling me to give my life to Him, and so like I remember all of that. Like I remember a lot of the feelings and like things that happened, but like as far as like exactly how old was I and like when did it happen, I don't really know. And then from there, you're still young and like learning, and I would say like my faith probably didn't like really become my own and fully develop until like later high school, college, which I think is probably
where faith meets frontal lobe.
Yeah, for sure. So but yeah, very very good, very normal childhood. Nothing crazy. I mean, we had a lot of loss in our family at young ages, like people in our family that, from, childhood to even into college, just a lot of family members that we lost. And so like, I remember that being hard.
Yeah.
But, other than that, I'm pretty pretty normal,
Yeah.
smooth childhood,
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, okay. When did you and Collin meet? I know it was college.
Yeah, freshman year of college. It was like this spring, well, maybe winter, spring of freshman year of college. So
Yeah.
2009.
Yeah.
2009.
I think I met Collin for the first time at a
You
Third Eye
did.
Blind
You
concert.
did meet Collin first. I think
Did
you
I?
met Collin before I met
Before?
Collin.
I don't think so.
It wasn't before? Did we not figure out that it was before? Maybe not. Maybe it was after.
I think that in my mind, it was after because like
Maybe
there was
so.
context
Maybe so.
to who he was.
Maybe
you know?
so. But I don't think we weren't dating for
Yeah.
sure. I don't think at that point.
Maybe not.
But maybe just knew who he was.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah.
Okay, but didn't your mom? Okay, to
Yeah.
explain this.
Yeah.
Because when I was reading your notes, I don't think I even knew this.
Really?
No.
Yeah.
Maybe I did at the
Bless her,
time.
you know? Yeah. No, my mom's the reason I even went on a first date with Collin, because I remember we had plans and it was supposed to be like a group thing. Like so I mean the way Collin and I
it was.
well,
Yeah.
that was my understanding. It was supposed to be a group thing. But like Collin was friends with like some of my good friends from high school, and like that's really kind of how we even ended up like meeting or knowing each other. Like he started going to North Monroe, which is where I grew up at church, and honestly, like I went to Tech and he was at ULM, and so a lot of times like I did church in BCM over there, but a lot of weekends I would just come home because it was just familiar and it's the church I grew up in, and so. A lot of my friends still went to church there. So like I kind of did a lot of both, but probably more so came and did like college stuff at North Monroe.
Yeah.
So we were supposed to be like, it was a whole Saturday thing where like they were going to come over and there was like a group of us, like we were just going to go, gosh, I don't even remember like what all we planned to do, but like we're going to go to the park and like just spend the day hanging out, like, you know, just doing whatever college kids do. And so like slowly but surely, like I feel like people were like, oh, I've had something, you know, like it just kind of ended up being like the group
Collin
sort of
paid
fell
each of them off.
apart. I guess so. Maybe so. We'll have to like hear that side of the story. But he called and was like, hey, I know like it's like everyone's kind of bailed out, but like would you still want to go and do? And like I woke up Saturday morning like not feeling great. And so I was kind of like, no, you know. And so I remember like I don't even know, like I don't know if I called my mom for that purpose or was just calling her just to talk or something. And I was like explaining whatever, and I was like, I'm not really feeling great. And I was like, and then he was like, do you want to go do? And she was like, well, just go, Lindsay. Like, why not? And I was just like, who are you? And what have you done with my mother? And anyway, so kudos to Barb because you know she's the reason that I ended up calling him and being like, all right, that's fine. I guess we can hang out today. And so that's our
hilarious.
first date was thanks to my mom.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I don't really want to.
That's hilarious. I love that. I really don't know that if I knew that or not.
Funny. Yep.
So y'all start dating eventually. And y'all got married, what, 2012? 12. Okay. And so you talked about in your notes, and I'd love for you to just kind of talk about this season, like that you know, a lot of people say the first year is the hardest. That for sure has not been the case.
No, definitely not.
But really, like when you've looked back on that first year, we've talked about this before. Neither of us really remember that first year feeling hard. New challenges, sure, you know, but I know for us, like the first year was fun, you know. I mean, there were plenty of figuring out finances and we got married in college, but I mean, you've shared similar sentiments. Can you just talk about that? Time of life.
Yeah. I mean, so Collin and I were together probably for 3 years. Was it 3? Yeah, it was 3 years total before we got married. We were probably engaged equally as long as we dated. I don't recommend that. Just FYI.
Wait, what?
We were engaged probably almost as long.
Okay.
We had a long engagement.
Yeah.
And at, you know, somewhere along the way, it's like,
Yeah.
You just get to a point where like, can we just be married already?
Yeah.
And so I don't know, like, I just think like we talk, like, I don't know what someone who said that their first year was hard, like,
Mm-hmm.
would have to say, and like what their reasoning behind it would be. But for us, I mean, we just like, I just feel like personality wise, like it
Mm-hmm.
was just easy. Like
Also friends.
we're
Like,
friends. Like we were
yeah.
friends because I mean, we were friends first.
Right.
And I can just remember thinking too, like, for sure there being um an element of like peace and knowing that like this was who God had put in my path, because like
Mm-hmm.
we wouldn't have met. Like there's just too many. Like I can remember thinking, and I honestly might have said this to a friend at the time, like in college, that like how crazy would it be like if we got married, because like we shouldn't know each other. Like we're not
Yeah.
from the same place. We don't even go to the same college.
Right. You
Like
were at Tech and he's
yeah,
at
and
ULM.
so
And he's not from here.
no, and so like it was just kind of one of those things where I think just somewhere along the way, like something in my spirit knew
Hmm.
that is who God had like placed in my path for a reason. And so, but we were just friends. We had very real, very honest conversations. I mean, I think back and I'm like, like we've had episodes where we've talked about like dating later in life, um, and just like people, if you start dating later in life, like you're dating with a purpose, and
Mm-hmm.
can sometimes discredit that like our college selves, well, definitely not as mature
Right.
in the faith or anything else. Like I think when I think back, I'm like, well, but like I wasn't not like,
There,
I don't
no.
know. I
Yeah.
don't know
It's
how to
not
say
like
that.
you were like dating flippantly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And
Also
so,
think there's like less pressure. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like, and you really do get to know someone
Yes.
um
Yeah.
in friend type settings,
Yes.
versus like just a structured,
Mm-hmm.
not that that has to be that way, but like just a structured like dinner
Yeah.
and a movie,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so I
And
do
that was
think there's a benefit.
a lot of our dynamic was like friend. I mean, we,
Mm-hmm.
like he clicked with all people, like I clicked with people. So like,
Mm-hmm.
and so yeah, I mean, I really don't think like
Yeah.
that first year it was fun. Yes, there's challenges, and yes, there's things to figure out as like newly married people.
Yeah.
But
But
yeah,
even like past that first year, like the first few years, I
yeah,
would say of what 3 to 4
yeah,
years of your marriage, like you described them as smooth, not
yeah,
saying without challenge or without growth
right,
or hard conversations or conflict or any
right,
of those things. And I want to just pause and speak to that for a second, because I think sometimes when we hit a hard issue in marriage, which we all will, whether that's
mm-hmm.
loss, whether that's sin, whether that's disagreements and parenting, what have you, it can be internal, external to the
Right,
marriage, and it can cause
right,
or cause or bring up issues that are already
right,
there. That we can look back and be like, oh, that smooth time was so naive. And I just want to pause and say, I don't think it is.
mm-mm.
I don't think it is. Like, for instance, I look at y'all's marriage, and obviously we were young, and there were many things we did not know yet,
Right,
but that doesn't make it naive.
right,
Like, and maybe I need to look up the definition, but I think the connotation of naive is that like you just didn't know what was coming. You thought it was
yeah,
this way, but it really
yeah,
wasn't. But it really was.
yeah,
Like I
mm-hmm.
want to uphold in y'all's story and in other stories listening, like you really did know what was up and it really was good.
Right,
Like,
yeah,
I mean, I watched y'all like really devote yourselves not just to attending church. Y'all always served. Like
yeah,
y'all were involved in college. I think y'all did youth at some point. I
yeah. I
can't
mean, for
remember.
sure, always like did DNow, like helped with
Yes.
DNows and
Like
stuff.
even past being married,
Yeah,
like I mean, y'all I remember y'all hosting people at your house that you met at church just to
right,
like connect people. Like I know Emily Jones and Sam Jones through y'all.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
y'all really did like foster so much fellowship. You opened your home up all the time. We had countless dinners there. Um, like your teaching was a service. I mean, you both apart from each other and together loved the Lord and
yeah,
followed him truly.
right,
Like I know what maybe other people don't. Like you did Bible studies together, like
yeah,
on your own. You know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah.
Like
I
y'all
would say we
did
were always,
devos.
you know, it just felt like it was important to be
Mm-hmm.
proactive and just
Mm-hmm.
do things together, read books together, or do specific things together. I feel like we we did put a lot of like emphasis
Yeah.
on like growth, together. So
I just think that's important before we go forward
yeah,
in sharing that part of the story, that was real and it
yeah,
wasn't dumb and it wasn't naive, because sometimes I think it can be like you didn't see the sinister thing lurking.
hmm,
And I do think like maybe a thread of false narratives will come up, because when we
yeah,
walk through wilderness
right,
things, like false narratives like I can't trust the Lord, or I can't trust anyone, or
yeah,
some things like that can come up. And whether or not we hit on those words, like I think that can be a large part of people's stories. And it can feel like that was there all along and I just didn't realize it. But that's
right,
not necessarily true,
yeah, yeah.
like, and so just wanted to point that out. Okay. You have 2016 in your notes as sort of
Mhm.
a turning point,
Yeah,
or the beginning of some hard things.
yeah.
And so, can you kind of set that up?
Um, yeah. So 2016, like it was kind of funny. Like I didn't have, so I mean, probably a year ago, I sat down and started like actually typing out like my whole testimony. I'd never done that before. Um, and I was asked to share a very specific part of my testimony at mom time. And so that kind of prompted me to like start working on all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And like as I was going, I honestly went back and like kind of separated it out to like pre 2016 and post 2016.
Yeah.
Just because like I do feel like, for reasons I obviously will never know, probably this side of heaven, like that was like a strange marker of a year where it just seems like
Life hit.
life hit. And it's kind of like, especially in comparison to like,
Mm-hmm.
not to say that like everything was just a cakewalk and easy, but like, no major
Mm-hmm.
life difficulties like that were just earth shattering or anything like that
Yeah.
prior to that. And it's so interesting because I remember us starting the Priscilla Shire study
Yes.
that winter,
Yeah.
or
Because
we
I
were
was
in the
in it.
middle of it.
Yeah. And yeah, I had just had Bear
Yeah.
on your
On my birthday. That's right.
birthday.
That's right.
And so
I was like, was that? That was, but it was that
the
following.
fall of 2015.
Yeah.
And so I was like still very
Hmm.
much dealing with maybe postpartum depression. I don't know what you want to call it, but like for sure sleep deprivation. When we started that
Hmm.
study, I was like, I am not excited about doing this study.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
just like really hadn't, I was, I don't know, 25 or so.
Yeah.
And really just hadn't studied spiritual warfare. I mean, I knew the
Yeah.
verses, you know what I mean?
Right. Right.
But just like that, I had a lot of fear,
Hmm.
like before that, even like from college, and just honestly lived a lot of my life in fear, like not for any like home reason, but
Right.
just like I don't know, I just didn't know how to like deal with it or take it to the Lord, I guess. And when we did that study, I was like not looking forward to
Yeah.
it, but like highly recommend.
Oh, yeah. And I don't know if I said, but it was Armor of God.
Yeah.
Priscilla Shire's
Mhm.
Armor of God study.
And it really did just like,
Yeah. I do think it was like it was a big shift for me because, like you
mhm,
said, I mean, probably never really talked about spiritual warfare
mhm,
or anything else. And not to say that like every single thing that happens in our lives should be
right.
credit. Like I think there's two sides of like we can give too much credit sometimes, and
Mhm,
there's a
mhm.
balance. But
What's
yeah,
that
I
verse? Test the spirits.
yes, and like I just remember like at the very beginning of her study, like her almost being like, "Get ready," because like if we're talking about this, like be
Mhm,
ready. And like I just remember like feeling so intimidated by that, like what in
mhm,
the world. And honestly, I look back, I'm like, phew, okay, she wasn't playing.
mhm,
And so I guess the first thing that kind of hit in that spring was the big flood, that happened here.
mhm.
And it was so Collin was graduating pharmacy school in that May. And I do think like I can look back on that particular year and like you said, like us being here. So Collin was delayed a year,
Yeah.
took a victory lap in pharmacy school.
Mhm,
And I can remember us being so like discouraged by that. because it was like, well, this wasn't when we were supposed to move. And like so many things, you can kind of just feel like, oh,
Because
okay.
y'all were moving to Zachary for him
Yes,
to work for his
him to work for his
grandfather. And that
grandfather.
was like always the plan, right?
Always the
Yeah.
plan. And like, obviously he's still in pharmacy school. Like I'm a teacher. So we're like learning how to survive on one income and all of
Mhm.
that. And so, for there to be a whole nother year that we kind of had this, what felt like a setback at the time, like I can look back
Mhm.
now and see like, there were so many reasons why, and like so many blessings that came from us, like having another year in Monroe.
Mhm.
And so, you know, I can look back and think like, Lord, you knew that we needed to still be here because you saw this
Yeah.
flood coming in. So basically, my parents' house flooded. They live in Treasure Island, and like,
Mhm.
had a ridiculous amount of water, and like it was just like I just remember that time, and it's like just the craziest thing. Like, I mean, I'm sure anyone who lived here at that time would also be like, yeah, like
Mhm.
that's not something that just happens.
Yeah.
And so, but because we were still here, like my parents were able to, like, we had a spare room. And so, like, they were able to, like, live with us. We were able to be here to help get all the things out, just like
Mhm.
it was important. And like, I'm thankful. Like, I look back and I'm like, God, thank you that we were still here. Because my brothers both live, one's in
Mhm.
Texas and one's in Baton Rouge. And so, um, so that was hard. Like, that's a lot. I mean, to
Yeah.
just, your childhood pretty much. I mean, we lived in one other house, but like that's where I spent most of my childhood, just to
Mm.
kind of go through all of that. And then just to see the devastation everywhere. I mean, just the
Yeah.
whole area. Um, and so that was tough. And then it's, it's wild, but Collin graduates. Like we had been saving since the day we got married to go on a trip when he graduated pharmacy school to Hawaii.
Mhm.
Best trip of our lives. And he'll ask me today, we've been all kinds of places, but like that's still my favorite trip ever.
Mm.
And so did that. And as soon as we came back, like loaded up the truck and like moved to Zachary. And then like literally the fall. So that was spring of 2016. In August of 2016, down south had the same exact kind of flood. And we were both like, do we need to go to Arizona? Like,
Yeah.
where do we need to move to?
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
clearly it doesn't need to be Louisiana.
Yeah.
Like, it was
Yeah.
just wild that, like, we would have experienced
Yeah, because
two,
when was the
like,
last time?
historical
I think
floods.
it was like 1990 or something the last time
Yes.
anything remotely similar happened here.
Yes. And so like that was just nuts. And honestly, like apart from all of that, really 2016 was just a hard year. I knew all along the plan was to move to Zachary whenever, because like that was like just part of the deal. Like his grandfather owned those pharmacies and like he was going to go work for him. And so it wasn't like, oh, this is a bad thing, but I would say, and like I kind of separated these things out. Like I would say for me, that was like a wilderness season, like one of my first like true wilderness seasons.
Yeah.
Um, just because I moved away from everything I knew. And
Yeah.
like I'd really never done that. I mean, yes, I went to tech, but like it's a 30-minute drive. Like I wasn't
Yeah. And you
really,
went with
and I went with
friends.
friends,
Yeah.
and like that wasn't really that unfamiliar. It was
Mhm.
different, sure, and took some adjusting, but this
I
was like
think
the
it's
first time, you know.
yeah, and like when you move to college, like it's like you have this purpose and it's like it's not necessarily forever and it's not, like there's a large part of expectations in college to like go build new friends and there's things set up inside college to do
Right.
that and oh this person has the same major and I just think it's a little bit different when you move for the first time as adults and
Yeah.
as married people because like you have an 9 to 5, I mean I use that term
Right.
loosely, job and
Yeah.
like um just totally different. I also think like you've talked about idolizing comfort
Mm-hmm.
and control
Mm-hmm.
and that like that season felt like a loss a little bit of
Oh
that
yeah.
and like feeling a little isolated and like I know you'll go into reasons why it felt that way but I also wanted to like specifically ask you like comfort and control are not necessarily bad things
Right.
because like for the spirit is self-control
Right.
like there and like he gave a stewardship over things like in the garden and in our lives and like for you and for someone listening who maybe is on the line of that where do we cross the line into like having comfort and control in some areas and that being an idol in our lives.
Yeah. Um, I think I mean, I'll speak for maybe my realizations of that. It's whenever, I think for me, it's whenever that comfort or that sense of control is taken away, how do you react or how do you feel about it? Like, how are you
Hmm.
able to handle it? Are you able to let it go and trust God? Um, and that's easier said than done for
Hmm.
most of us. And I don't know if that exactly answers the question, but I think in my life, I can look back and see it's almost an internal, like, what's happening in your heart when those things
Hmm.
go away. So like when I'm forced out of my comfort zone into a place, and moving to Zachary, it's not that we didn't know anybody, we had family there,
Right.
but I
Yeah.
started a job where I knew no one. Like, I did not work in Zachary, and I walked into a room full of people I had never met in my entire life. And that was nerve wracking.
Hmm.
And it's just, I think I can look back and see like my foundation maybe like sure was rooted in Christ, but like,
Mm.
I don't even know how to like, what a good analogy would be, or like how to explain this, but
Mhm.
it's almost like maybe I had one foot on Christ and one foot on my comfort and my
Mhm.
control. And when one of those gets
Mhm.
taken away, which it inevitably will, I'm shaky and like I'm not able to stand firm and withstand. And so cue crying to work every day. like,
Yeah.
you know, um,
Uh, okay, what was the hymn that we sang on Sunday? It
oh,
was like, was it Jesus, Jesus, how I trust him?
yeah,
How I've, is it tried him over,
proved him over
proved
and over.
him over and over.
Yeah.
Like, so I was just like thinking about that and thinking about David
Yeah.
and how like when he went to go fight Goliath and Saul offered his armor, he tried it on, it's too big, it's clumsy, like he's not used to it, and he says it's untried,
Yeah.
and so he goes with no, like Goliath wasn't just huge, he had a shield bearer
Yeah.
with him. I don't know if shield bearer is the right word, I think it is. But like he had that with him. David had none of that, like from the
Yeah.
untrained eye, but yet how many times in Psalms do we see
Hmm.
him call the Lord my shield,
Yeah.
my shield? And that's like, when did he gain that like
Yeah.
analogy and that the way he thought of the Lord? And it's like that then,
Yeah.
because like, you know, Saul's armor was untested, but the Lord was not,
Right.
because he'd had to depend on him.
Right.
And whenever you said that, it's like, yes, like your foundation is in Christ, but how many times do we say that,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't really
Yeah.
lean on him? We lean first on our own understanding,
Oh,
lean first on,
yeah.
this comfort. And
Yeah.
makes me think of the verse. I had written this down this morning, Matthew 6:24. No one can serve two masters. Either
Mm-hmm.
you will hate one and love the other, or you will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important because like money can represent so many things. It can
Mm-hmm.
represent comfort, control. It
Yep.
can represent um, status, or
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, whatever that looks, but like bottom line is you can't serve two masters. And
Right.
so it's like comfort and control can be a blessing when we have like things in
Mm-hmm.
order. We
Yeah.
have comfort in seasons, but at the point that we've got to figure out which one we're going to serve
Mm-hmm.
and we want to go this way,
Yeah.
towards those things. I don't know. I
Yeah.
think that's when it's like, that's when like our faith's unproved in
Yeah.
those areas.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh yeah. Well, and I mean, I know we've done a whole episode on like wilderness seasons.
Mhm.
And we want to tend to, like, our knee jerk is to view those as in negative light. And
Yeah.
just because, I mean, most of the time they do come with something hard. It's not
Yeah.
like they're easy. There's nothing glamorous or, easy about a wilderness. When you think about that, it's usually like you're thinking the desert is barren. There's nothing here.
Mhm.
Um, but I don't think that, like, our faith, um, I don't think our faith is tested really in any other
Mm-hmm.
season. And so, um, for me, that was probably the first time truly, like,
Yeah.
ever, that I had actually, like, stepped into a
Mhm.
position of, like, kind of feeling like a lot was taken from me,
Yeah.
and a lot of that comfort and a lot of that control felt stripped away.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I think for the rest of my life I'll be learning that lesson.
Well,
But because I feel like that's a common theme through all the seasons that I've been, like, through the big wilderness seasons I've been through, like, it's like the
yeah.
Lord each time is refining that in me,
Mm.
and revealing to me, like, hey, you know you might be back there, or have
Yeah.
you put it back in a misplaced, like, misplaced that comfort and
Mm-hmm.
that control? Are you
Mm-hmm.
depending more on that than you are on me? And so,
You're a science teacher.
yeah,
I mean, like
yeah,
you can't say this is my hypothesis and not have a controlled experiment
right,
where two things could have been the cause to the effect.
right,
You know what I mean?
right,
It's like if you want to prove
right.
that this was cause and effect, then like everything else has to be
Hmm.
removed from the situation,
I love that, Hallie.
I'm speaking
Yes.
your language. Look
Gosh.
at me.
I'm a science nerd. Like, I'm proud of you.
Thank you. I'm now a homeschool mom, so I don't want to brag, but like I'm learning some things,
I love it. I love it.
Um
Oh my
okay,
gosh.
I'm really glad that you're diving into the definition of the wilderness, because for the person listening that's like, what Christianese are you speaking to me right
Yeah.
now? The wilderness is really woven all throughout
Oh
scripture.
yeah.
From beginning to end. But one specific instance that I feel like we'll be referring to in your story is the Israelites. Like the Israelites were God's people, for anybody who's not familiar with scripture. And they were liberated from slavery, and from the Egyptians, and they were delivered in this miraculous way that they absolutely could never have done for themselves. But they're having to walk through the wilderness to get to the promised land. And so they're in this place that is barren, that is like, we can look back, like, and they look back longingly at the places they were mistreated and treated just terribly, inhumanely, and yet, like, they can think, well, but we had food, and like, we had this comfort and we had that, and so they're in the wilderness. There's no, there's no crops. They can't, you're not farming, you're not
Right.
cultivating anything. You're heading in a direction that you don't even really know. And so they begin to wonder what they're going to eat. And so God sends manna, which means, what is it? And I love that, because it was a substance they'd never seen. They couldn't explain what this is, and yet it was nourishment from the provider in a controlled experiment that there's no other way.
Yeah.
There's no other way this provision could come except through the Lord. And he does. He provides that, and enough for every day, for every person. Just this really neat analogy. And I think sometimes when we're in those seasons, we're looking at what is our sustenance and our provision and saying, what is it? Why am I here? What is this?
Yeah.
Is this really helpful? Because it's not this. It's not what I had here. At least back then I had XYZ. And like I think sometimes when we're being liberated from things that have held us in slavery, or being freed from things that have held us in bondage, like, we can look at God's provision as, what is it? But when you look back, you see the manna. And so what was the manna that the Lord began to bring into your life there, that I know you'll mention more as we go?
I'm not sure if this is what you're tracking, but this is what my brain is
Yeah.
thinking of. So moving there.
There's no wrong answer. It's your story.
Well, I know. But I'm like, maybe you had a specific thought. I don't know.
Nope.
But for me, moving there, yes, we had family, but that was very strained at the time for specific reasons. And it really did. I felt like, I just felt like when we moved there, it was like, Collin and I had each other, and that was very important. But it was like, but we don't have community. We don't have, it just felt very isolating.
Mm-hmm.
And especially for me, like for Colin, it was a little different just because that was his hometown and like he did
Mm-hmm.
know people and
Yeah.
all of that. And so I just
And you're working with
remember,
your grandfather. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
Like,
So like there was a lot more familiarity for him than there was
mhm.
for me. And so I think probably for the first time ever in my life, I actually had a need to pray for community. And to just realize like I feel so alone and I feel so isolated. Like, Lord, like please bring people into our lives and
Mhm.
like godly people, like people that can walk with us through this hard season that we're currently in. And um just all of that. And so we did get plugged into a church and like the Lord provided like a very solid core group of friends.
Mhm.
Um, well, I'm already getting emotional, but like, and those people would be really important
Mhm.
people, just for the years to come.
Mhm.
And so, I think that is a common theme. And I'm thankful that the Lord has like, a lot of times we don't see things until hindsight. Um, but I think that the whole like I mean I tattooed it on my arm for a reason, but like Jehovah Jireh, the Lord will provide, and like in every wilderness season that I have found myself in, like I in hindsight am able to look back and see like you did exactly that, and even if you hadn't, and I think sometimes we can get kind of bogged down in like, oh, he provided this, he provided that, he provided this. No, like you provided yourself, like you
Yeah.
provided because of who you are and your goodness and your love for me. And like, he met me where I needed him to meet me and like did provide in tangible ways that,
Mhm.
because sometimes I think we can focus so much on like, oh, this is what he did. But like, no, the ultimate provision is himself, it's Jesus.
Yeah.
And so, I think I can see that better now than
Mhm.
maybe I did then. But,
Mhm.
but for that season, it was the community of friends, and those were and still are
Yeah.
close friends,
Mhm.
that were just really important
Yeah.
for us in the time that we were in Zachary. So
Yeah. Not long after that, you entered a new wilderness season. And so this would be what, wilderness number 2
yeah,
in
they
your
kind of
notes?
like crossed
Yeah.
over a little bit.
Yeah.
Because when we moved to Zachary, that was when we also, because we just kind of had landed on like we would wait to start trying to have kids, until Con was done with pharmacy school. Like that just felt like a lot because it was like I have to work,
Mhm.
you're in school. Like it just, logistically,
Mhm.
it was like, I mean, obviously, if the Lord had had other plans, that's fine. But
Yeah.
for our, as far as we were concerned, like we'll just hold off on that. And honestly, like I can think back and, like when you're in that time of like I'm thankful for the time that we had,
Mhm.
before kids and like made some things harder, I think, because we had so much time that it was just the
Yeah.
two of us. And not a season that we would have chosen, obviously, by any stretch of the imagination.
Mhm.
But basically, we started, once he was done with pharmacy school and we moved and kind of had gotten settled. I say settled, it was kind of in the midst of chaos where we were like, well, I guess we'll start trying to have a kid too. Where I'm like, not really sure what was going through our heads at that point in time because it was a pretty stressful time. But did start trying to have kids and like, I don't know that we like necessarily like knew of anyone like personally that had struggled with infertility at that point in time, but like for sure knew like, hey, this is not going to happen overnight. Probably, for some people it does, but
Mhm.
kind of went into that with a mindset of like, no stress, like we'll just let it be what it is, and whenever the Lord, is ready, like it will happen. Um, and so we reach probably like the year mark, and we're kind of like, okay, well, this is feels a little unusual. And
Mhm.
I think at maybe just like in one of my random appointments, just like a yearly checkup or whatever, like I kind of started to ask, like, hey, like we have been trying, like, at
Mhm.
what point do we like start to like ask questions or like do we need to like be concerned? And I just remember her saying like usually it's like when you've reached a year mark, like we might kind of just go from there and see like if there's anything that we can figure out going on.
Yeah.
So we reached the year mark, and basically, for the next 2.5 years, um I mean, we did all the things. We did all the things, like all the tests and all the ways that you could check for stuff. And pretty much like we ended up going to this place in Baton Rouge called Fertility Answers, and they were wonderful. But basically it was just like, hey, you're kind of in the 3% of people who have unexplained infertility, which, like, when you're in that position, it's like, on one hand, you're like, okay, thankful that like there's nothing wrong. But on the other hand, it's like, but if there was, we could fix it potentially. And so, like, again, you're back in, I mean, for sure for me, like, back in this place of like, I'm so frustrated because I'm not completely out of control and there's literally nothing that can be done. And probably aired more to the frustrated side of that, of like, yeah, I know I should be grateful that there's nothing wrong, you know, with either of us, but also like can't do anything about it. And so like we're just here and this is where we are. And that's like, it's just hard. Like, I don't know. I mean, I think unless you experience certain things, like you just don't fully understand like how frustrating it can be. And even if you have something that's like, oh, we know this is the cause and maybe we can do things to work towards it, like it's still just a weird place to find yourself where you're completely out of control. And there is literally, we tried, you know, like we did all the things to attempt to control. And I do think that in that season for me, it was this like kind of weird space of like knowing that I'm not in control, but like, let me still do everything that I possibly can to control. And that just got exhausting. Like, I would say for sure in that season, I can look back and see like, it didn't necessarily always feel like it in the moment or at the certain times, but like by the end of it, like it takes a toll. I mean, it took a toll on both of us in different ways and our marriage, like just the feeling of frustration. That like, here's this thing that we so desperately want. That's good. But you know, I can even look back and think like as human beings, like it is so hard for us to not idolize things. Like it's so hard for us to not put things in the place of God. Like I mean, we see that time and time again in the Old
very
Testament.
hard to see him as Jehovah Jireh, as the Lord who will provide when you don't feel like he's providing the thing that your heart so deeply desires. That's a good desire, you know? And so like, that's a very hard piece to hold in your hand and go, what do I do with this theologically? And like, what does this mean for my faith? And I honestly think it's a really important thing to acknowledge because it seems to be something, whether it's infertility or marriage or a job or healing or what, you know, a lot of times people can hinge his goodness on that answer and proof of him on that answer. A lot of people walk away from their faith on that moment. I think about John the Baptist when, you know, he's in prison for being faithful, for speaking truth. And he begins to question, like, are you the one we've been waiting for? Do we need to keep searching? And he sends messengers to Jesus, and Jesus is very gracious in his response. But he says, and my phone's, I can't look it up on my phone, but you know, go look it up. Don't let me quote this for anybody. But blessed is he who is not offended by me. And so like he talks about like, and I just think like so many times he's doing things we don't understand and it feels deeply offensive. That you're not answering what I'm asking you to answer. And it's really, really hard. And I think we can cling to sentiments in those times like, well, if it's not good, he's not done. And I like, there is so much truth to that because he is so good and he's so kind and he's so gracious and he does bring immeasurably more. But I love that you set up that the provision is himself. And that's the part that we think if it doesn't come in this way, but like some people will not have that. For John the Baptist, that was not the answer. You know what I mean? But it was himself. It was assurance of I am the one. You know what I mean? Like that was his provision. And that, anyway, I just want to pause because I think that's
important.
Is so hard to grapple with. And we will all wrestle with that over and over. in different seasons.
Yeah. And obviously, again, I'm going to say hindsight a lot because I can look back to those years and at this point in time, like some of that feels very fuzzy, some of it not, but some of it very fuzzy of like, where was I? Like where, like what, but like, I remember, I don't know when, this was somewhere in the last few years, like going through things and like finding old journals and like just crying because I was like, I think sometimes I can look back and think like, oh, Lindsay, like you didn't, like you missed the mark. Like you didn't, you were like halfway surrendered, but halfway angry and all that. And I can kind of like, you know, be critical, like as we all can, of ourselves. But then I look back at my journals and it's like, you know what, actually no. And like, oh my gosh, how much was he preparing me like for what was to come? And like, it was almost just like a stepping stone of like, in every season, if we will allow it, it's sanctification. Like his goal is not for us to be these happy, healthy, like what the goal is to be holy and like for us to look more like Jesus. And most of the time that's not going to happen when we're comfortable. Like we're just not, because when we're comfortable, like why do we need to, why do we need Jesus when we're comfortable? Is typically, where we can all fall. And so, but I look back and I see, especially through journals and things that I've said, it was like, no, you're being honest. Like I was honest with the Lord. And I do think eventually by his grace, he brought me to a point of frustrated surrender. Like it wasn't so much, which I mean, I don't know if ever like when we're surrendering, like, are we not frustrated in that process? When we're
I would say one has to come first.
Yes. And so I think it's just bringing, and like at that point, I think when I kind of reached, and this was probably like fall of, 2019. It was October, November, December. Like those were some like 3 like kind of wild months. And like we had gone on a mission trip to Honduras. And like I just remember like almost feeling like I was going through the motions because it was like, God, like, yes, I want to serve you faithfully. You've continued to bring me back to Honduras, and I don't really understand why that is. Like, why every time I've gone on a mission trip has it been here? And like asking lots of questions, and and just kind of like just saying like, I don't know what you're doing, and like I don't know what if we're gonna have kids or we're not gonna have kids. Like I have no idea. But a large part of it for me was there were just some things along the way that was starting to like feel like it wasn't gonna look like I wanted it to look like. And I mean, I think we can all like find ourselves in those positions where like we think it's going to look a certain way. That's that control, and that, my plan, and this is what how it's going to go down. And for me, like at that point, surrender looked like pursuing other avenues that like I didn't necessarily want to, or not that I didn't want to, but it was just it just wasn't what I had in mind and like what I had envisioned.
And for some people, that is the best no they've ever received.
Yeah.
Because that's how they got to adopt their child. Like,
yes,
it's, I mean? Like,
for sure.
Yes.
And also like, it wasn't lost on me that like, I can remember as a high school or a college kid, like thinking like, I don't know. And Collin and I even had conversations like about adoption, like that, like, I don't know, like, I don't think I'd be opposed to that. And it's just ironic that like, whenever, like there were some things that Lord kind of worked out in me of like, well, hey, don't you remember like, you kind of always said you'd be open to this, but it's frustrating because it's like, well, this isn't exactly how I planned that to look, and so it was kind of crazy. And I mean, I won't get into all the details like totally, but essentially come like November, I was just, that was probably one of the darkest points for me was just like, I am just angry, and sure, we're going to go through with these. Like, we're going to call the adoption agency. Fertility Answers had called, and basically offered us a free IVF cycle, which I was like, Lord, like, you've not led us to this at this point. Like, why now?
Doesn't happen.
Does not happen. Yeah. And I can just remember thinking like, what in the actual world? Because like we had literally the week before called and made an appointment with an adoption agency. And then that weekend we were home for Thanksgiving and got this random phone call. Like, we hadn't been to Fertility Answers in a while. Like, it had been a while. They called and they were like, hey, you guys would be good candidates, blah, blah, blah. Like, anyway, it was wild. And I just remember being like, Like, what? Like, I was so annoyed with the Lord, to be honest. Like, I was so annoyed because I was like, what are you doing? And like, what are we doing? And what is happening right now?
Mhm.
And basically just kind of landed on like, okay, well, we're going to think and pray about this IVF situation over the weekend. If I call you back on Monday and there's still a spot available, like, okay, Lord, like that's just where I was with him. I was like, okay. And bless him, he was so gracious with my tantrum self sometimes, but like call back, there was still a spot available. And I was like, okay, well, sure, sign us up. Like, I don't know. So it's like we had this appointment in December on the schedule to go meet with fertility answers and start initial like stuff with that. We had an appointment scheduled in January
With the adoption agency.
with the adoption agency. And I was like, well, I guess we're just going to do both because I don't know. Like, I don't know what else we're going to do. And like, in the midst of all of that, like, I don't even remember exactly when it was, like time wise, but I know it was from that point, November, December timeframe. Like, I remember like us having a conversation and you were, did you tell me up front that that's what y'all were going to do? I didn't think so, but I do remember
No,
you.
because I really like, we had conversations. Like we talked about infertility so many times in those years. And so, cause it was like, this is now a 3-year period.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to say something to you that was like getting your hopes up.
Right.
And also was like trying to hold well, like, why would I need to be faithful with my part? You know what I mean? Like,
right. Yeah. But I do remember you asking me like, okay, what would be the craziest? Like if you could ask the Lord or pray or whatever, like what would be like the craziest thing that you would ask for right now? And I just remember saying like to be to be pregnant by Christmas. And that was November, December. I mean, like it was end of November, beginning of December. And I was like, that's stupid. Like, why would I even say that out loud? Like, that's so stupid.
And I knew that was like such a hard thing for you to have to think through because like when you've been praying for something and hoping for something for that long, like it is one of the bravest, most hardest things to open yourself up to hope again.
Yes. Because it felt like at that point, okay, this isn't going to happen. And so for whatever reason, like
he's obviously opening these 2 other doors.
Yes. And so like it felt ridiculous to even say that out loud. And then, I mean, after the fact, like, I don't know, but I guess I'll just go like timeline wise, but, basically I, was late and I was like, I don't even want to take a pregnancy test because I've taken so many of those at this point and never once have I ever seen pregnant. And so it just felt like, do I even do this? Like, why bother? Because I've been here before and it's nothing like, it's just whatever. And so, yeah, I was like, okay, whatever. And I don't even know like what ended up like prompting me to actually do it because most of the time, like I'd kind of gotten to a point where I was like, I'm not taking a test anymore. Like I'll start in a few days and like, that's that, And so I did, I took a pregnancy test on December 19th of 2019 and like for the first time ever saw pregnant and, lost it obviously. And so we were coming in to Monroe that weekend with our family, like to do Christmas with my family. And I don't remember like what if I just came over one evening, like that night after we got there. What did I do?
We went to go eat.
We went
to go eat. We ate dinner, like spent the whole evening gabbing about who cares what. And then we come back to my house. We're sitting there and like my kids were little. I guess they were all here. This is December 2019.
Yeah.
So Finn's like 6 months old or something, close to it. And or older. And anyways, so like they're all asleep. So we're sitting in the living room and you were like, oh, by the way, like, are you kidding me? That was not the first thing you said when we got here.
But yeah, and then like you brought out your journal and we wept in your living room because
because the backstory was, and we might have talked about this on the podcast before, but for context, we had that conversation. We had 2 conversations, okay? Like one that was like, you're like, well, this has happened and this has happened. And like, would y'all pray with us about these options? And so we had, and we were praying about it and like talking about it with y'all. And which I loved. I loved that you invited people in to pray with y'all. Like, I don't think we do that enough.
Yeah.
And that is such a beautiful piece of surrender, honestly.
Yeah.
You know, because
Yeah.
you're not just holding something close to your chest, like you're inviting people in, and just a real like depiction of community. And so we were praying about it. And around that same time, I went somehow um, by myself to go get a coffee.
Yeah.
And so I'm driving through and I'm listening to a podcast, and it was Christine Kane talking about how like she was talking about the friends who brought the paralyzed man to Jesus, and how like sometimes you need community when you cannot physically bring yourself anymore.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
when you emotionally are spent and you spiritually are questioning, what do I even do here? And
Yeah.
can I even keep hoping and going on this? That you need friends that will pick up your mat and carry you before the Lord.
Yeah.
And I just felt so convicted. Like, we've prayed about these specific things you've asked, but like, have we picked up the mat? Like, what does that look like for us to do that? And so I went home and talked to Andrew, and I'm like, what are we doing? Like, how come we haven't like fasted yet about this? You know, like, this is something that's so important to our friends, and like they're hurting and they're longing, and you know, like, and so like we decided to fast for a month, each from different things. And we chose to pray specifically for that you would be pregnant by Christmas. And I don't know that I knew your answer yet when I said that. I don't know
Okay.
that I had asked you. I can't
Okay.
remember where that fell. And like, but that we had chosen to pray that you would specifically be pregnant by Christmas, and we prayed that it would be twins.
Just sprinkled in that little extra.
And we're gonna pick up this mat and we're gonna run. No, I want to be clear that like the Lord did not answer these prayers because we prayed them, or because Andrew and I prayed them, or because we fasted, but like it's a story that I hold with such care and such awe, because there's been 1,000 things we've prayed for, and that was not the right thing. You know, like the Lord gives us what we would have prayed for had we known everything. He knows.
Yes.
And so there are plenty of times the answer is no, or not yet, or not now. But in this instance, what I'm so grateful for is that he moved our hearts to be a part of it, because what a blessing to see the miracle and to have hoped with all of our hearts for it. You know, like what a thing it would have been had we not really allowed ourselves to hope out of cynicism, which is for sure a pitfall of mine. Because like it would have lessened the blessing, I think. And like I think that kind of happened with all four of us in that same season. Yeah. And so anyways, I say all that to say, I just don't want prayer to seem like we did XYZ and therefore we got this response. Yeah. You know?
No,
and yet it was his orchestration, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Well, yeah, because I mean, it was him. It was his spirit that stirred you to even, that convicted, that started to be a part of. No, I love that. And I mean, like that, there's probably so much that could be said there, but just that in general. And then, and really just, I love that you said something about like bringing community and bringing people in to pray. Because that was at that point in time, that fall, the Lord had also placed me like in a D group with 4 other women who were in all stages of life that had also been through infertility, like every single one of them. And so like, that was a comfort to me. And just, like just to know how many people were a part of that, you know, but just, I don't know, like just probably the first time that for sure I would say like, no, that's a miracle like that. Yeah. You know, to have experienced like an actual miracle was kind of wild. Like, and for the Lord to have given us eyes to like see that. and to be willing to let people be a part of it.
Mm. So Lillian Stagg.
So Lillian was born in
Yeah.
COVID
In
year. She
COVID.
was COVID. Yep. COVID birth. Bless her soul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to ask you this, and I know you don't have to go into this. I mean, just whatever you feel led, but like for the person who has struggled with maybe infertility and they've had this baby and it's hard. It looks differently than you ever thought motherhood would look, or parenting, or loss of sleep, or health issues. I mean, whatever that is, like having a baby is hard.
Yes.
It's wonderful.
Yes.
It's hard. You can't possibly have right expectations because you just haven't done it before.
Right.
It doesn't matter what they are. Like, how do people hold that truth with this is hard, parts of this is hard, with like, but I wanted this, and I feel the strange guilt that it doesn't just answer all of my, like, you know what I mean? It's not just the easiest, best thing all the time, every moment.
You were asking that question because I 100% was there. After she was born, obviously, like one of the greatest joys of our lives, you know, to have her and all of that. But literally, there is absolutely no like preparation for your first kid. Like there's just not. I mean, people can tell you all sorts of things that are super helpful and sure, like, but you have no context. Like you have zero context to really understand what anyone else might be saying. So like, and I would say that to any first time mom, like not even if you've gone through infertility or some other kinds of struggles like loss and things like that along the way, like this is for everyone that like that first kid's hard. And I will stand firm and down this hill for myself that like that was the hardest transition in spite of everything else that's happened in my life since then. Like that was the hardest. And so I think for the mom who has struggled with infertility, because I found myself there of like, goodness gracious, I did not know how hard this was going to be. And also I'm so like thankful that she's here and that we have her. And like, this is a blessing. Like, first of all, guilt does not come from the Lord. And these are things that like, I'm not going to sit here and say like, I didn't have anyone say these things to me, but number one, I probably didn't vocalize it. For whatever reason. I think probably just because of like, there's shame attached to that. There's shame that's always going to come with guilt. Like it's like this connected thing. And so it felt almost shameful that I would feel like this is not just the best thing all the time, even though it's hard. And so I think first of all, if I have learned nothing over the last few years is that two things can be true. And I don't know that I like ever.
Struggle doesn't mean you're not grateful.
Right. And like, I don't know that that's ever something that was said to me explicitly or like a message that I ever like really like understood or internalized or knew to be true. I know it now very well to be true.
And that you wouldn't need Jesus every step of the way.
Yes.
In a good thing.
Yes.
You know?
Oh, yes. And so I would for sure say, like in that first year, 100% fell back into like self-sufficiency and like, oh, this all depends on me because Lord, how could you actually, and I don't know that I like ever had that thought like explicitly of just like, but no, like I literally have to meet these needs. Like how you going, like some of those questions, like, no, I'm mom. So like, I have to meet these needs.
Yes.
Like, what else can I do?
Like total left brain.
Oh yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yes. And so, one, just knowing like to that mom, like knowing that two things can and absolutely are true. Like children are an absolute blessing from the Lord and they are some of your greatest joy. They are also exceptionally hard. Maybe the hardest thing you'll ever do in your life is to raise kids.
I think one of the reasons that that's so hard for us to hold for ourselves is because we care so much what people think.
Yeah.
We care so much and so deeply in ways we don't even realize that we do. And like, what do people tell you when you have a baby? there's nothing wrong with people saying,
Oh, I know.
like, but they like savor every
Yeah.
moment.
And every moment is not
Mhm.
savory.
It's not.
It's just
Some of
not.
them be unsavory
Some of 'em are
moments.
terrible.
Yeah.
But I think that's part of the problem is not that I didn't have people who could be real with me. I do
Mhm.
think that I had friends that were real. I'm sure. But let's be honest, like first year postpartum, like we don't remember much that people say to us. Like we just don't.
I told
Like
no
I
one
can't,
I was struggling.
and I probably didn't either.
And honestly felt okay when I was around other people. You know what I mean?
Yes. There's
that
Mhm.
was like the fix. And so
Right.
I didn't,
Yes, my sister-in-law asked me after she had her first, she was like, "Lindsay, did you struggle with this stuff?" I was like, "Maddie, my gosh, yeah." She's
Yeah.
like, "You didn't say anything." I was like, "No, of course I didn't."
Yeah.
Like, why would
Yeah.
I? And so we don't talk about the hard parts.
But it's also like, so like you see posts on Instagram too of moms being like, everyone told me how hard it was going to be. And like, it's wonderful. Like, and I'm
Yes.
like, okay, but like realize that someone was trying to help you.
Right.
It's so hard. Like you don't want to say, let me tell you how terrible
Yeah, no.
this is going to be.
This would be the
Because
hardest thing you ever do.
it's not
Yeah.
terrible.
No,
It's
it's not.
wonderful. And so like, but at the same time, like, anyway,
I know. It is.
There's no perfect way.
There's really not. But I think, if you were that mom, number one, like rest in the fact that two things can be true.
Mhm.
And motherhood and parenting is hard. It's hard. It's worthy, but it's hard.
Mhm.
And open up like that.
Mm.
I'm gonna say this because I think my sister-in-law has done this very well in her first year of having her first kid, of saying the things. Like
I think also you ask good questions. I mean, I don't
I don't know.
I'm not saying that about her, but I'm just saying like
Yes.
I also want to say like for friends walking alongside someone, like ask good questions.
And
they won't always answer you,
right? Yeah.
But you can do that part.
Yes, for sure. But just be willing to you don't have to. I'm not saying like anybody and everybody, but just you need at least one person that
Yes,
you can look at in the face and be like, "Hey, this is going to sound probably not great, but I need to say what's truth right now," and to just be willing to bring other people in, because it can feel very lonely. Like your first baby, motherhood can feel very lonely. It doesn't matter if everybody else around you has babies too, and they understand certain aspects. And I had friends close by. I mean, you had 3 kids, that were very helpful, but helpful in the things that I felt like I needed them to be helpful in so that I could control my situation. And I'm going to tell you what, parenthood and motherhood, if you think you have control, although I have to laugh because I'm I had been through enough things at that point that the Lord was probably like, "Hey ma'am, you should probably know better by now." And
please
yes,
order my book. You're Still a Good Mom.
Yes.
Motherhood Surrendered to the one who never fails.
No, wasn't me.
Even when you feel you have.
Yes. Somebody did a bless them, didn't know any better. And they didn't know me to my depths at that point in time, but I don't even remember who it was that gave the book to me. Recommended. And this is not, let me preface this. This is not a knock on this book. Okay. Because I still use them and they're very helpful, but gave me Moms on Call.
Yes.
And they have great information.
It really is.
It's a great book. But for me and my controlled, I can control all things mindset that I like to live in, led me to believe that I could have a 2-week-old sleep trained. And if you have one of those, you have the Lord's favor.
Yeah.
Okay. Because at that mark, I was like, why is she not doing what she's supposed to be doing at 2 weeks old? And I can remember just sitting there being like, I've lost my mind. I've lost my mind. Why do I think that I can get so, just understand that control is an illusion always. Yeah. But when you enter into motherhood and parenthood, you absolutely are met head on with your utter lack of control. Yeah. And so, it's just know that it's okay. It's okay for 2 things to be true. Well,
as you're mothering and parenting those who are not doing and are struggling to control their emotions and whatever that is, God is parenting you and
Absolutely.
nurturing you and the things,
Absolutely.
and you can't control your, and it's like, it's just like,
Yes.
uh,
Yes.
yeah.
The cycle.
Yep.
Never ending cycle.
It's
So
a
yeah,
gift.
it's a gift. It
It's a
is.
gift.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. But yes, find you community and know that you're not alone. I also met someone else. Like this was another part. This is another thing that like I never really did. And I found it refreshing. I met a girl maybe last fall, maybe a year ago. It was a Wednesday night thing at church and had no idea who this person was. It was like the first Wednesday night kickoff thing.
Mhm.
And like they did a time of like praying for one another. And I can't even remember like exactly how like that looked or what exactly it looked like. But Jessica was sitting next to me. She went to pray for her. And then she came back knowing like some of my story and was
Mhm.
like, hey, I think you need to go talk to her. And so like I went back and I introduced myself. And like basically she told me like, you know, we've been struggling with infertility. Like we've had maybe she'd had a miscarriage. I don't remember. But like, but was just so honest
Mm.
and like, in the conversation that we'd had with her, and then maybe even like her and her husband afterwards, like Collin and I had a conversation with them, and like it was so refreshing. And I'm like, gosh, Lindsay, why did you not do this more? But like,
You did it more than you think.
well, maybe so, but just was so honest about the feelings that you have when you're
Mhm.
going through infertility or struggling to get pregnant. Of like, again, two things can be true. You can be so excited for the people around you who are getting pregnant, and you can also be so resentful. And
Mhm.
like, we just are not comfortable with saying those kinds of things out loud
Mhm.
as like a body of believers, of
Yeah.
like, this is how we really feel. And like, we can feel both of those things.
I
And that's a
remember that
battle. Like, that's a
feeling.
battle.
I remember feeling like my whole self can celebrate,
Yes.
and it wasn't contrived. Like I'm
No.
not pretending,
Right.
you know,
Right.
and my whole self can mourn
Absolutely.
that it's not me as well.
Yes.
You know, and like I think, you know, like envy is like I want that for myself, so I don't want you to have it.
Yeah.
That's not really what
Right.
it is.
Right.
You know, it's like I'm so glad
Yeah.
you have that blessing. And my whole heart hurts that
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why I
Yeah.
don't.
I just
And that can
think,
be a lot of things.
oh yeah. And I haven't finished it, but like, there's a Jackie, like with the Perry's podcast, like there's one I
Mhm.
just started listening to, and maybe it's like one of their recent ones called When Christianity Gets Hard.
Yeah. Mhm.
And I've only listened to maybe like the first 15, 20 minutes of it, but basically like talking about, just the struggles, and maybe that's the right one. I don't know if that's the right one or not, but I just remember in one of the ones I've listened to recently with them just talking about like we are not okay as a church with hard things. Like we're not okay with hard things.
Mhm.
And it's, no, but like
Mhm.
we just all the platitudes and things that we say.
Yeah.
And it's like, yes, I mean, it's not that those things aren't truth, but like we struggle to sit with people in the hard too, whenever
Yeah.
like the hard is also true. And so I don't know,
Mhm.
just
Yeah.
be honest and find
Mhm.
someone that you can be honest with and be honest with the Lord.
Yeah.
Um,
And if their response isn't kind and compassionate and gracious, don't hold up.
yes.
Be honest with
Yes.
someone else.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like don't let that be that's the church's response.
It's not.
That's
Yeah.
not, you know.
Yeah. So yeah.
Hmm. Okay. We're going to stop there.
Okay.
And we're going to pick up on part 2.
I was about to say
Next
this is probably
week.
getting long.
We're going to pick up on part 2. People are going to have to come back
I think I'll have to come back
for some of those spoilers we dropped at the beginning of part 1.
Yes. For sure.
Well, thank you, Lindsay, for part 1. There was so much that was so helpful and kind and like truly came alongside more than one person today that needed to hear so much of that. And so thank you for sharing and for being honest and vulnerable.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna end with this scripture because I think this is kind of the whole point of things that we go through. And this is if any like I mean the prayer has always been like, Lord, even with infertility, like while it took a long time for that to not feel such a sore spot, for sure after the fact it was like, however you can use this, Lord, like however you can use any of the things I've gone through, what a waste of, like if the Lord didn't take this and use it, what a waste it would be to have to go through these things.
Yeah.
But that isn't how he operates.
Right.
He is good. And I think this is my motivation. It was something that like was very like a verse that was very dear to my heart over the past few years specifically, but it's in 2 Corinthians chapter 1 verses 3 and 4, and it says, "Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies and God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our affliction, so that we may be able to comfort those who are in any affliction with the comfort with which we ourselves are comforted by God." And so I think when we share testimonies and we share the things that we've walked through and share what God has taught us and what we've learned and how God has comforted us in those seasons, we are then able to extend. And I think that's the whole point of a testimony, is to point to God and the way that he has comforted us so that we then may comfort others. And so, I hope,
Well, it's that rivers, that you talked about in the beginning. Like
and it isn't, it is all what God has done, and that ultimately, like, that's our source of comfort. And so if nothing else, hope that's what's heard is God is our ultimate comfort. So,
well, thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah,
that was really good. And we'll
buckle up
part
for
two
part two
for next week. So
sounds good.
Thank y'all so much for listening in to the Saltworks this week. I know that there was so much that spoke to you in part one because it spoke to me, and I am just so grateful that the Lord has allowed us to share this story with you, and we cannot wait to share part two with you next week. So make sure you come back, and we'll see you next week on the Saltworks.
This is my story. This is your story.